are going to talk about tech and AI and what is scary about that. And we're going to try to just see what the future is bringing us and what we can do about it and how we can really take ownership of that future and make it the one we want. So, my guest today is a familiar face. It is Lobow. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm dying to talk to you about this because I don't know technology.
I think all too often when you're looking online at either social media or traditional media or whatever, it's common to see one of two arguments. Either AI is the best thing ever and it's going to bring forth a utopia, or AI is going to be the end of the world and we're all going to die.
Right.
I believe that the answer is somewhere in the middle. And so let's try to figure out maybe where that middle is, because I think
Right.
it has good parts, it has bad parts. But let's start with just the root of it. If you could share your biggest concern with kind of everything happening with AI.
Absolutely. So it's not, and I'm not qualified to say why I'm concerned because
You
I
don't have to be.
know
You're
I,
allowed to be
that.
concerned. There is nothing wrong
Okay.
with that. And this is
I,
perfect. Like there's nothing wrong
I
with being concerned. And that's exactly why I want to have this conversation.
excellent. Number one is the very name itself, artificial. To me, the definition of artificial is not real. It's fake. So fake intelligence, not real intelligence. I want authentic intelligence. If AI said authentic intelligence or authentic ideas or authentic, I'd be all about it, right? The problem I have is the person that is struggling is going to have a my fear is that it's a false world and that you can get involved into something that is like you cannot tell an AI care about me. That's where that's my biggest concern. And but the problem is the corollary to that is that AI will help those people that are struggling get out of a rut by getting shit done. So that's where I'm confused. My concern is the very name, artificial.
I think there is an issue with branding here because, first of all, if you think of, AI, a lot of times our minds go to what we've seen in movies, TV. There's no show about the fact that, we created these machines that could learn, and then everybody just was a bit more productive and had a great life. And that's the end of the show because nobody would fucking watch that.
It's like
Um,
the Matrix. You plug that in there, it's like, well, that was boring.
right.
I,
The thing to keep in mind with what AI truly is at its root, it's just a computer that can adapt over time. And intelligence is a weird word to throw in there because, first of all, we don't have a great way to measure what intelligence is. If you just look at the understanding of like IQ and, oh, you did well at school, so you must be smart. No, that doesn't mean shit. That is one measure. But I do believe that if we could put people into the roles that they actually enjoy, the AI becomes a tool in their arsenal to help them accomplish their goals. I think there is a problem with the artificial in the sense that it becomes easier to deal with than reality. But I don't think what we see currently in the role in kind of the realm of generative AI is going to be much different from the people who escape into video games, who escape into drugs, who
right.
escape into, whatever. There's always an escape somewhere, and
Oh
humans
yeah,
will find it. Um,
absolutely. That's a good way to
um,
put that. That's a really good way to put that, actually. It's my thing is, you know, you go on Google, you type in something and it shows you results, right? Like we have the technology that can read what you would prefer and all that kind of stuff. My fear with AI is that it's almost like it's a human being that you're talking with, except that it's not. Like, and to people that aren't strong enough to know the separation that this is a tool versus this is not someone to confide in. This is something to use to do things that you're not as good at. I would love to understand AI and use it because Jesus, I mean, look at me. I'm so bad at technology. I would love to say, "Hey, AI, do this," and it's done. The problem is like I know that that's not a human being. It doesn't have a heart. It's a computer program. I think a lot of people that might have issues mentally are going to get really confused by this technology because to them it might appear like a human being, and to me that's a little bit dangerous. That is my only concern with it, honestly.
I definitely understand that. But the thing that really sticks out the most is it can be really hard to find people that you can actually just be yourself with and not be judged. And that is something that actually these chatbots can be really good at. I think a lot of times we end up creating these situations where it's like, oh yeah, just say whatever you want. And then they say something, you're like, oh, not that. Like, no, no, can't talk about that.
Okay, I like
And then
that.
so they say something else, and then they're like, "Oh, I can't really say that either."
Yeah,
And so what it teaches people is it teaches them to not be authentic. And so I think one of the things that some of these chatbots can do, and it might seem a roundabout way of doing it, but if the chatbot can help them express themselves in an authentic manner and help them become comfortable with that so that they can express themselves authentically to those around them and surround themselves only with people who are okay with them doing that, I
right.
think ultimately this could potentially lead to a lot of stronger relationships and people who are more comfortable being themselves. And that is something that is hard to do in this world.
It is, especially for people with mental health issues like ADHD, autism, all of that. Having a group of friends, having authentic face-to-face interaction is hard for a lot of people with those disorders. And I think that you hit on something good is in my opinion is like it can lead you to the real life. So it's the artificial to get to the authentic. My problem is I don't see how someone that is struggling so hard to branch out to make friends or whatever can get that camaraderie through AI. It's almost like because yes, AI might lead them to something, but they're going to have to take the initiative to actually speak to the person.
Good point. It's going to be really easy to just fall back on that. But I think for a lot of it, it's making these transitions easier. It's the ability to practice. And this is something that, like, if
Great
you think
point.
about kind of being in high school, right? I went to a small high school and I had a fairly limited number of social interactions to like figure out like where I slotted in, right? Like you have like five times and then it's like, no, you're this type of person and this
Yeah.
is going to be your friend group and that's it.
Right.
And so, but I think with a lot of this, it's like, especially when you have no idea who the hell you even are, and you're just trying to figure
Right.
all this shit out, the world's confusing, whatever. And you don't necessarily get the ability to practice. And this is something that I did early on when I realized that I wanted to learn how to communicate with people online. It's about putting in the reps and just practicing having that conversation because
Yeah.
it gets easier and easier over time and doing it in a realm that doesn't have any actual consequences. And that is what I think AI can be really good for. It's like we can have that conversation, we can role play, but like you were saying, like the AI is not going to like go to a concert with you. It's not going to go hang out
Right.
at the bar. It's not going to travel with you. So I think at some point it ends up lacking. And that's when the person can be ready to take this to the next level. And it's this constant progression that I think is super important. And when we can like
Yeah.
minimize the gap between levels, and that's where I think AI does really well.
I truly get that, and it makes a lot of sense. But you got to understand my concerns with it because of my personality. My personality is heart, heart, emotion, emotion. Like I mean, it's constant across the board. For someone like me, AI is scary. But for someone that can understand those levels, see, my brain can't understand that. My brain cannot understand how anything with a label of artificial can ever scratch the surface of being real. I mean,
Okay, so here's what I want you to do.
that's
Every time you hear the word artificial intelligence, I want you to just think fancy computer. Uh,
that's the best point ever, actually, that I've ever heard from anyone regarding it. is fancy computer.
You
I
know,
get it. I get it now.
yeah, ultimately, what we're doing is we are creating machines that, it used to take millions of dollars in funding and, hiring, hundreds of engineers to build out a solution that would be, useful and profitable because, you got to raise this money from all sorts of places. You can essentially have this computer that you could talk to it, write to it, whatever you want to do, and just be like, hey, I want to do this thing with the computer. And it takes care of all of the pieces behind the scenes. But ultimately, it's still a computer that allows people who don't have all of that background knowledge. They don't have the funding. They don't have any of that. But now they don't need it. You can use it for business sense, but you can also do it to weird shit and have fun with it. That's the part that I'm really excited for because I've used Photoshop in the past. I'm really bad at
Right.
Photoshop. I could do some things, but it takes a lot of effort there. But again, like we're minimizing that effort, we're making it fun. When that level of fun is there, all of a sudden you're
Agree.
unlocking this level of creativity among groups of people.
I'm not saying that AI is wrong. I am not. This is a concern thing for me. You just described and made me feel better about AI. You described it in a way that I now kind of understand, like, okay, fancy computer, FC. It took us knowing each other for you to alleviate those concerns. And it took us knowing each other in real life, face to face, for you to understand what would work best for me to understand something. And AI cannot do that. You explain it to me in a way that you know that I will understand. And an AI cannot explain to me in a way that I need to understand it because I don't know how to talk to it. Maybe we could agree that, like, there's a lot more education and knowledge that needs to be presented to the public on this.
And
But we could,
honestly, that's a
yeah,
big reason behind the YouTube channel and behind a lot of the
yeah,
work that I'm doing because I think that people need to play with these tools. They need to see what's
yeah,
possible to get there. We need to play. We need to go out on the playground at recess and go play the sports so that eventually we see ourselves in the lights. And that's where that dream starts. And from there, we start figuring out what that next step is. So I have this firm belief that the ultimate outcome of everybody's life is doing shit that you really enjoy doing with people you really enjoy doing it with. And by framing things in that way, it comes down to the fact that, like, I'll let the AI deal with the people I don't want to deal with so
okay,
that
I
I get
love
to
that.
hang out with the people that I do. People will have that choice to make. Everybody will hit that point when they realize, like, I'm not in line with what I want to be. I can get sucked into certain games. But ultimately, I also have a lot of things that I just rather do more.
Yeah,
Things that are meaningful,
100%.
things that actually have an impact. And I think that's what most people really want out of life. But something I found is that, through the content that gets created online and through all of the information that is now accessible to us, it's easier to figure out at least different approaches for doing things. And then you try them out and you're like, yeah, that one doesn't really fit me. That one doesn't really fit me. But oh, like this really connects. I want to pursue this. And I want to get into podcasting because all of a sudden I'm having conversations with really cool people from all over the world. That's my video game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I get the same feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction. And actually, even more so because it's like I see the impact I'm making on people around me.
Hell yeah.
I'm seeing the reality that I am
Right.
shaping. And that's something that I think video games don't get enough credit for. They give you the ability to shape your reality in a lot of different ways, but people don't realize you can do that in reality as well. You just have to, like, figure out how to do it. It's a little harder. There's not exactly a manual that'll show you all the controls, but ultimately, you can totally just shape your own reality and you can
Yeah.
make your existence exactly what you want it to be. AI can kind of provide the on the fly instruction manual, towards shaping that reality. And it's like, that part I think is going to be interesting to see how that's helpful, because again, it's like it won't do the work for you in a lot of these cases,
Right. Right.
but it might help you figure out that next step to take that gets you one step closer toward what you want your reality to be. And that part is the beautiful part of what we're getting towards.
I am so proud of you, Leo. God damn, that was a great speech. Now I'm like AI for president. Fuck.
Let's go to the wall.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, AI now. It's no longer Lobow Spark. It's Lobow's fake Spark. No.
Fancy computer Spark.
Yeah, there we go. FC. The only
Clubhouse Spark FC, which is great because a football club and soccer, it's perfect.
that's what we're doing. But no, the only rebuttal I would have to that is, like you said from the very beginning of this, is it's kind of like a drug. It can be a drug to where, like, if the person isn't strong enough to stop using, it's really dangerous. And that's where it's, to me, so confusing, because I get it. Like, I know what you're saying, and I think it's awesome. I think you presented it to me. I'm not scared of it anymore. But what I am scared of is the people that aren't as strong as me and you, that don't have that point of no return where they're like, you know what? I learned a lot from this. I was intelligent enough to know these kind of things about myself, and to know that I had to switch off the video game, to know that I had to stop doing this. And then all of a sudden, if they're not strong enough to know that in their own mind, that AI can take over their mind, because it's a drug for some people. People can just
And
go on and
unfortunately, so is
it's
fentanyl. And fentanyl doesn't
that's
give you another day. With AI, okay, it might keep you in a holding pattern, but it's not going to kill you suddenly.
right. That is such a good statement, Leo. Okay. See, this is where we work so well together, is because, like,
Right. That's
you can present AI, and I will absolutely love it, and I will present, the human aspect, and people will absolutely love it. But the thing is, we can get along and enjoy this conversation because they're all good points, all of them.
the reality presented is not reality anyway, especially when you're spending time
That's true.
online.
That,
People are presenting their view of reality, and a lot of times they're doing it for reasons that you don't fully understand.
right.
Maybe there's a financial incentive, maybe there's all these different types of incentives that can come into play, but ultimately, like, you have to figure out what's actually true before you can start building on that. Because if you're building on a bunch of fake walls, like, they're all just going to fall over and collapse.
It's
Whereas if
knowing
you
what's
figure
true for
where
you.
you are and
It's
you
what's
start
true
building
for
from
you.
there, then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you can turn that reality into what you want it to be. It would have
Yeah.
been really easy for me to be like, I live in this backwater town in Ohio. I'm not in Silicon Valley. I'm never going to be in the tech startup scene, like, and accepted that. Or I could be like, yeah, fuck it. I'll go try to create my own startup. It turns out that was way harder. But now I'm at a startup. I'm continuing to build. You have that narrative that you tell yourself of, because I'm this is exactly what I can do and no more. And if I want to do this, then I have to be in this place or doing this thing. None of that's true. Sure,
Right.
some of it may make it easier, but that doesn't matter. You can figure out different ways of doing things. You can figure it out along the way. You don't need to do it
Yeah.
all at once. You take one step and then go, okay, where am I now? Okay, another step. I'm going to go over here now. I've spent the last 2 years honing my craft, putting in that practice, putting in the work. And you know what? I see the progress. I can see the actual difference I've made in those 2 years
Yeah.
because I've put in that work. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to putting in the work. And AI will never put in the work for you, but
It will
it
make it easier.
may help you just a little bit figure out exactly what work you need to
Yeah.
put in. And when you can do it from a place of, okay, this is like where I'm at now, that's a lot easier to do when you have tools that can, like, support
Yeah.
you wherever you're at.
We could agree, I think, to disagree and love at the same time here, because uh, it's just two different styles.
Hey, man, you can do things however the fuck you want.
Thank you for at least alleviating some of my concerns. I'm overly passionate, but the thing is, I love who I am. That's
That's the
like,
fucking human in you. That's
yeah,
the
like,
shit that AI doesn't have.
right. That's and that's what I want other people to have, is the ability to be like, I'm fucking in love with myself. Like, I'm an awesome person.